AITA for destroying my wife's life after she slept with her therapist? I, 46M, was married to my wife, 43F, for 18 years. That's longer than some people stay in the workforce. We met young, in our early 20s, working normal jobs with no real plan beyond figuring it out as we went. We had 3 kids. We built a life that, from the outside, looked pretty decent. Nothing fancy, but it was stable, secure. That's what I thought anyway. Over the years, things started to change. If I'm being honest, the drinking was always there. Even when we were dating, she drank way more than I did. But I was too young and dumb to see it as a red flag. I just thought, well, some people like to party a little harder. But the years went by, and the party didn't stop. It wasn't just on weekends or special occasions. It became a regular thing. She would get home from work and crack open a bottle like it was part of her routine. At first, I made excuses for her. Long day, stress, whatever. I told myself she had it under control, but she didn't. There were mornings she wouldn't remember what she'd said the night before. Sometimes I would find her passed out on the couch with her glass still in her hand. She would lash out for no reason, getting angry over little things, then cry and apologize, and the cycle would repeat. The kids started to notice, too. They asked questions I didn't have good answers for. My youngest once asked me why Mom talked to herself so much. My middle child started doing his homework in his room instead of at the kitchen table because he said it was too loud downstairs. I tried talking to her, but those conversations always ended in fights. She'd accuse me of acting like I was better than her, of keeping score. She said I was exaggerating, that she just liked to unwind. I started walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. It wasn't exactly the marriage I had dreamed of. Eventually, I convinced her to go to rehab. It was a huge step. It cost us $25,000 we didn't really have, but I made it happen. I took out a loan, fell behind on bills. I told myself if it could help her get her life back, it would be worth it. She spent a month inpatient. No phones, no visits, just group therapy, structure, and detox. When she came back, I thought things might get better. She seemed calmer, less on edge. She stopped drinking, at least for a while. We had a few decent weeks. She even helped with the kids' schoolwork and started cooking again. Nothing special, just being present, which was more than I'd seen in a long time. But it didn't last. After a couple of months, she got restless. She said she needed space to work on herself. She started going for walks that lasted for hours. She would tell me she was journaling or meditating, things like that. I wanted to be supportive. I figured maybe it was part of the process. She started therapy. She said she'd found a counselor who really got her. I thought that was a good thing. It is not easy to deal with addiction and come out the other side. I wanted her to have the tools to stay sober, to stay centered. But as time went on, she grew more distant. She would get angry with me over nothing. She would go silent in the middle of conversations. She would stop answering my texts when she was out. And it wasn't just with me. Even the kids noticed. She started missing their events again. She skipped our youngest son's school play. She forgot about our middle child's science fair. When I reminded her, she would just say, "Oh, something came up." It wasn't just forgetfulness. It was like she didn't care. She also started getting really defensive whenever I asked where she was going. One night, I asked her calmly, not accusingly, "Where are you headed?" And she nearly bit my head off. She said she didn't need permission to leave the house. Of course she did not, but I was just asking, not putting a GPS on her. The weirdest part was her attitude. This smug little smile she'd get sometimes, like she was 2 steps ahead in a game I didn't even know we were playing. She'd come back from wherever she'd been, humming to herself, disconnected from us. And her phone, she'd never cared about it before. Now it was glued to her hand. Constant texts, notifications, locking the screen the second I walked by. I wasn't trying to snoop, I just noticed it. At first, I didn't say anything. Part of me didn't want to rock the boat. Another part didn't want to find out what I might find. Still, I told myself this was part of recovery. Maybe she was finding herself, maybe I had to give it time. But deep down, something felt wrong. I had no proof. Not yet, but I felt it in my gut. That feeling when you can't quite explain it, but you know something isn't right. Like she wasn't just recovering. She was pulling away. After weeks of ignoring it, I started paying closer attention. Not in a jealous, paranoid way, but just observing the details, the timing, the patterns, the slips. I wasn't trying to catch her doing something. I just wanted to know if I was going crazy or if my gut was telling me the truth. It didn't take long for things to stop adding up. It started with the email. We'd shared a laptop for years. Bills, school forms, everything. I went to log into an account, and Chrome auto-filled a Gmail address I'd never seen before. It wasn't her usual name, not even a variation. It was some weird combination of initials and numbers. I clicked on it without thinking and saw it was still logged in. The moment I saw that inbox, my stomach dropped, not because of what was there, but because of what wasn't. It was clearly an account she had created specifically to hide things. My hands started shaking as I scrolled, that feeling of uncovering a secret that makes your body react before your brain processes it. There was nothing crazy in the inbox, just a bunch of password resets, some calendar invites, and a single email from a shady booking site with a hotel confirmation. The subject line read, "Your downtown stay is confirmed." I opened it. A 2-night, midweek reservation downtown, under her name. I stared at the screen for about 10 minutes. My mouth went dry. I thought maybe there could be an innocent explanation, but my hands were shaking as I closed the laptop. I walked away, made some coffee, then came back and opened it again, like maybe I had imagined it. She had never mentioned anything about it to me. There was no girls' night, no work event, nothing. I closed the tab and just sat there. I didn't want to assume anything yet. Maybe it was for a recovery event. Maybe she booked it for a friend. My brain was clinging to anything that wasn't what I already suspected. So I checked the dates. They lined up perfectly with a night she said she had a late afternoon support group meeting. She came home late that night. She told me she went out with someone from the group afterward who needed to talk. I remember because she smelled like a super expensive spa, and I made a dumb joke about it. It wasn't funny anymore. Later that week, I found a crumpled receipt in her jacket pocket from a little steakhouse near the hotel, one that's definitely not known for hosting therapy sessions. 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, dessert, time stamped right in the middle of her supposed meeting. And unless she had suddenly grown a second stomach and a taste for Merlot, she wasn't alone. Still, I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready to go to war without knowing exactly what ground I was standing on. So I started keeping a log. I didn't spy on her phone or follow her, none of that TV drama stuff. I just noted things, when she left, when she came back, what excuse she gave, what she was wearing, who she said she was meeting. Little details. I noticed she started getting really vague about her counseling appointments. Before, it was always specific. Tuesday at 3 p.m., downtown office, back by 5. Now it was just, I have a session, or my counselor wants me to check in. One day I casually asked for his name. She told me it was Scott. She said it offhandedly, just Scott. First name, soft smile, zero hesitation. But there was something in her voice. It wasn't just a casual mention of a therapist. There was a warmth, a familiarity, like when you say the name of someone who makes you feel special. That name started coming up more often. Scott says I should trust my instincts more. Scott helped me realize I don't have to explain myself to anyone. Scott thinks I've been carrying too much emotional weight. Okay, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but when your recovery counselor starts sounding more like a life coach who also secretly hates your husband, something is wrong. One night she was on the couch texting, and I caught a glimpse of her screen. Not even on purpose, it was just lit up and facing me. I saw the contact name S, with that stupid rose emoji next to it. Then she saw me looking and flipped the screen over like it was a top-secret file. I asked her who it was. She said, "Oh, just someone from the group chat," and changed the subject. The final nail in the coffin was her car's GPS. One night, she left her phone charging in the kitchen, which was super rare. I went out to her car to grab something. She had one of those old GPS units still plugged in. I hit the recent destinations button out of curiosity. I just sat there in the driver's seat staring at the screen for about 5 minutes. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. The evidence was right there, digital and undeniable. I took a picture of it with my phone, hands trembling, like I was documenting a crime scene. What came up? That same hotel from the email, not once, but 3 times, spread out over 2 months. That is when a switch flipped in my head. It wasn't my imagination. She wasn't just in a weird place. She was lying, blatantly, frequently, and with total comfort. And not just about where she was going, but about everything. The recovery, the progress, the support group. It had all become a cover for something else. Even then, I didn't go straight for the confrontation. I went to my lawyer. Walking into that office felt surreal. I had driven past the building hundreds of times without a thought that I'd ever be going inside. I sat in the waiting room with sweaty palms, rehearsing what I was going to say. How do you even start that conversation? I think my wife is having an affair with her therapist. It sounds crazy, even when it's true. I sat down across from him, put a printout of the hotel email on his desk, and said, I need you to help me be smart about this. He read it, didn't say much, just put on his glasses, read it again, then looked at me with an expression that said he'd seen this scenario before. He leaned back and asked, do you want to go nuclear or surgical? I said, let's go surgical, but deep. Good. He replied, pulling out a legal pad. Because if we play this right, we're not just talking about divorce terms. We're talking about professional consequences for this guy. Licensing boards don't mess around with therapist-client relationships. And that was the beginning. I wasn't looking for revenge just for the sake of it. I wanted protection, for me, for the kids, for our future. I was done playing the fool. I was done giving her the benefit of the doubt she didn't deserve. And if she thought she was going to walk away from this clean after what she did, she was about to learn very quickly that I wasn't the pushover she thought I was. I wasn't going to scream or throw things. I was just going to shut my mouth and collect evidence. Not physical evidence, but mental. Dates, tones of voice. Who said what and when. I never thought I would need that skill this way. And here we were. After talking to my lawyer, everything started moving in a different direction. Not fast, but steady. He looked at the hotel email, the GPS logs, the receipts, and at first, he didn't say much. Just nodded and asked a few follow-up questions. Then he leaned back in his chair and said, if we play this right, you're going to come out way ahead, but you have to keep your head down. I told him I was all in. He laid it out for me. First, we do not confront her. That is key. The second she knows I know, she will start hiding things. She'll spin it, play the victim. She might even claim I'm trying to control her or gaslight her. He said if she starts making moves before we're ready, she will erase the trail, and we will be left with nothing solid. So we had to let her think she was still safe. Second, get hard proof. Not just an, I think she's cheating. We're talking about a documented timeline, proof of the relationship between her and the counselor, and most importantly, proof that it overlapped with their therapeutic sessions. Because if we could prove they were involved while she was still a patient, that was huge. Like, really huge. Therapists in California who cross those lines don't just get a slap on the wrist, he explained, pulling up the state licensing board's website. We're talking an automatic investigation, possible license suspension, maybe even full revocation if it's bad enough. And once that happens, their name goes on a public registry. Anyone can Google them and see exactly why they lost their license. Apparently, the counseling board in our state, California, is super strict about boundaries. A romantic relationship between a counselor and a client, even a recent one, is a total non-starter. So we weren't just going for personal revenge. We were aiming to hit where it hurt, legally and financially. And right there in that meeting, I told my lawyer I wanted to move forward with the divorce. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. I'd been thinking about it for a long time, probably longer than I had admitted to myself. I just hadn't said it out loud. But sitting across from him, with the evidence in my hand and the weight of the last few years on my shoulders, it felt like the only logical decision. He nodded, started drafting the paperwork, and from that moment, we were in motion. A few days after I filed, she was served. She didn't see it coming at all. She had been floating around the house like she was finally at peace with everything, like she was some reborn version of herself. When that envelope hit her hands, that calm mask shattered fast. I was in the kitchen when the process server rang the doorbell. I watched through the window as she opened the door, still in her yoga clothes, probably fresh off another meditative walk. Her face went from confused to shocked to furious in about 3 seconds. She stood there reading the papers, and I could see her hands start to shake. The confident, enlightened woman who lectured me about emotional growth suddenly looked like a cornered animal. She confronted me in the kitchen that night. "You're divorcing me?" she snapped, holding the papers like they were radioactive. "Yeah," I said, "I am." She scoffed. "Wow. After everything I've been through, you wait until now to do this?" I didn't even answer. "Do you really think this is fair?" she said, her voice rising. "I've been trying. I've been working on myself. I've been in recovery. You didn't support me through any of it. All you did was sit back and wait for me to fail." The accusation hung in the air. I could see she really believed it, that I was the villain in her recovery story, that I had somehow sabotaged her path to enlightenment. It was amazing how someone could rewrite history so completely in their own head. I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to explain. I had carried her long enough. Unbelievable, she muttered. Fine. Then my lawyer will be talking to yours. I thought that was the end of it, but a week later she hit me with the real bombshell. A printout from her lawyer full of divorce demands. She walked into the living room, tossed the envelope onto my lap like she was serving an eviction notice, and said, "These are the terms I'm proposing." I opened it slowly. Half the house, primary custody, child support, and a whole page dedicated to her emotional suffering, claiming she lost her identity in the marriage, that I withheld affection and undermined her healing. I looked up at her and said, "Are you serious?" She crossed her arms like she was ready for a national TV debate. "Yes, I'm not letting you control the narrative. I'm the one who's been doing the work. I've been in recovery. I found this skill. You don't get to make me the villain now just because I've gotten over you." I stared at her. "Gotten over me?" I said. "You've been sneaking around with your counselor, and you think you're the evolved one." Her face twisted like I'd slapped her. "Wow, so that's what this is about. Accusations now. You don't want me to get better. You never did. You hate that I found someone who actually supports me." The way she said supports me, like it was some noble therapeutic relationship instead of what it really was. The delusion was breathtaking. "You mean the guy who was supposed to be your therapist? He helped me see the truth about how small you made me feel. He saw things in me you never did." Her voice had this dreamy quality, like she was reciting lines from a self-help book. "He understood my journey in a way you couldn't. He validated my growth." I shook my head. "What he saw was a married woman in crisis and a chance to take advantage of her, and you saw a way out without having to do the real work." She took a step forward, pointing her finger like she was about to give an inspirational speech. "You always twist things. You always want to be the victim. Maybe if you had been present, maybe if you had actually cared about my pain instead of just managing it, he wouldn't have been necessary." That's when it hit me. She really believed it. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't sorry. She genuinely thought I should be grateful she had stuck around as long as she had. "You're unbelievable," I said. "No," she shot back. "You are. Because while you were sitting around judging me, he was actually making me feel seen. Maybe if you had listened, really listened, I wouldn't have needed him at all." She said that last part like it was my fault. Like her cheating was some kind of trauma response to me not rubbing her back enough, or whatever cheap excuse her group therapy friends had fed her. I looked her right in the eyes. "You can write whatever fake story you want in that packet, but I'm not signing it." She narrowed her eyes, calm again, like she'd expected this. "Then my lawyer will handle it." And that was it. That was the moment I stopped seeing her as my wife and started seeing her as a problem that needed to be solved. By the time we filed the complaint, I was done with the emotional part of it all. I wasn't angry anymore, just focused, methodical. It was like flipping a switch. I went from trying to hold a broken marriage together to looking at a chessboard, 10 moves ahead. My lawyer filed the complaint with the state licensing board on a Monday morning. He hit send, looked at me across his desk, and said, "The clock starts now." We didn't expect fireworks overnight. These things move slowly. But that didn't bother me. I was patient. After 18 years of carrying someone else's dead weight, waiting a few more weeks to watch their house of lies crumble didn't seem like a big deal. What I didn't expect was how quickly things actually started moving. By then, she had moved out. Well, sort of. She had taken a few bags to her mom's place and left most of her stuff behind. She said it was just until things calmed down, but we both knew it wasn't temporary. Still, she would come over a couple of times a week to see the kids, like she was still playing the part of a present mother. The kids' reactions said it all. My oldest daughter would get this tight look on her face every time she heard the car in the driveway. "Mom's here," she would say, but not with excitement. More like she was warning all of us to brace ourselves. My youngest son would hide his homework when she walked in, like he didn't trust her to be able to help him anymore. And my middle son started asking me privately, "When's Mom coming home?" But in a way that made it clear he was hoping the answer was never. When she came over, we would fake it. Both of us. Smiles for the kids, short conversations in the kitchen, pretending we were two adults peacefully figuring things out. But underneath the surface, it was pure ice. Every sentence had a double meaning. Every look was a loaded gun we couldn't fire in front of the kids. I'd give her updates about school, or tell her what they had for dinner, and she would nod along like we were just co-parenting. All the while, I knew her boyfriend was about to be dragged into a full-blown ethics investigation, and she had no idea I'd lit the fuse. On Wednesday of that same week, my lawyer got a call from someone at the licensing board, not an intern or an assistant, a senior investigator. They said the complaint was now officially under review, and they would be in touch to request supporting documents and possibly testimony if needed, which was their way of saying, "We're taking this seriously." She still had no clue. A few days later, during a visit to see the kids, she was acting weird, quiet, none of her usual smug tone, not as chatty with the kids. I caught her just sitting on the couch, staring at her phone like she was pretending to read while just mindlessly scrolling. That night, I got a text. "Do you still want to go through with this?" I didn't reply. Then another. "I've been thinking. Maybe we were hasty. We both said things. Maybe we should actually talk." This, from the woman who accused me of emotional neglect and said she was over me just 2 weeks ago. So when she came over next, I was expecting something. She waited until the kids went upstairs before cornering me by the sink. "You know, this doesn't have to be a war," she said, her voice soft, arms crossed. I kept wiping down the counter. I didn't know it was one. "I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be ugly." I looked at her. "You handed me a packet asking for my house, my kids, and a check. That seemed pretty ugly to me." She didn't like that answer. She left without saying anything else. Then came the big turn. My lawyer called me the next day. The board had officially contacted Scott. They were opening the investigation. They were asking him to respond to the allegations and provide a timeline of his relationship with my wife. "They don't mess around," my lawyer said. "When they call, it's serious. He's got 10 days to respond with documentation, and then they'll schedule a formal hearing." That same afternoon, she came over looking pale. Not sad, more cornered. Her eyes were darting around. She was clinging to the kids instead of being relaxed. She tried to make small talk about how our daughter's handwriting was improving. I just nodded, played along. After the kids went to bed, she didn't leave right away. She stood by the door, clutching her purse too tightly. "Have you talked to anyone about Scott?" she asked. I shrugged. "Why?" "No," she said. "It's just, he's not answering. I've texted him 3 times. Nothing. I called him, just voicemail. Something's wrong." The panic in her voice was clear. The woman who was so sure of her path and her support system was suddenly realizing that system had serious cracks. "Maybe he's busy." She stared at me. "You'd tell me if you did something, right?" I held her gaze. "I'm just letting the process play out." She didn't ask anything else, just left. The next couple of days were awkward. She came over again and acted like everything was fine. She asked if I wanted her to help with dinner. I told her I had it covered. She just stood in the doorway for a while, like she wanted to ask something but couldn't. The mask was cracking. Right after that, my lawyer got a call from her lawyer. They wanted to clarify the scope of the non-disparagement clause. My lawyer played dumb. "What seems to be the issue?" And they got vague real fast. They said there were rumors and a concern that something had been reported regarding a professional relationship. My lawyer gave the most professional version of giving them the middle finger. "My client has made no public statements. If he is contacted by the board, he will answer truthfully under subpoena." And that's exactly what was coming. She stopped texting me after that. I think she finally realized I wasn't bluffing. The panic set in. She showed up one afternoon unannounced. No makeup, messy bun, phone in her hand. "I don't know what you're doing," she said, "but you're going to regret it." I tilted my head. "Doing what?" "You know damn well what," she snapped. "You always hated that someone made me feel good about myself. Scott was helping me, and now he's ghosting me, and I know you're behind this." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "You really think this is about your feelings? You blew up your own life and expected no one to notice. You're just mad that the guy who was seeing you is now too busy fighting for his license to answer your texts." She took a step like she was going to try the guilt trip. "You always twist things. You don't want me to be happy." "No," I said. "I just want you to leave." She didn't say another word. She just left, slamming the door like a teenager. The next week, the subpoena arrived. I turned everything over to the board. The hotel receipts, the texts, the rehab documents listing him as her counselor, the calendar screenshots, the time-stamped photos, the message history, all of it. They thanked me and said they would be in touch for a formal statement. Meanwhile, she was still coming over to see the kids, but every time she walked through that door, she looked a little more faded. The enlightened warrior in recovery energy was gone. She stopped trying to make conversation, stopped asking me anything. She would come in, hug the kids, smile like she meant it, but I could see her hands shaking, her eyes darting nervously, her mind doing the math. It was finally sinking in. Scott was done. The complaint was real, and she was screwed. When it was all over, it wasn't like a movie. There were no fireworks or a dramatic gasp in a courtroom, just a quiet morning, with my lawyer sliding a manila folder across his desk with a simple, "It's done." I read through the final terms and felt nothing but peace. I got the house. Full custody, no alimony. She owed child support. Not a lot, but enough to be poetic. Scott lost everything. The board moved faster than expected. After my testimony under subpoena and all the documents we provided, they ruled it was a clear violation of ethical boundaries, a breach of trust, and abuse of power. All the legal language boiled down to one outcome. They permanently revoked his license. His name went on the public registry of disciplined professionals, just like we planned. You can Google him now, and the first thing that comes up is license revoked due to unethical relationship with a client during active treatment. No wiggle room, no excuses, just the truth. He tried to appeal, filed paperwork, paid lawyers, but it didn't do any good. Once the board made its decision, that was it. No hospital would touch him. He tried to do independent coaching for a while, but even that dried up when parents started finding out who he was. In professional circles, word travels fast. My lawyer told me he had applied to 3 different wellness centers and got rejected from all of them as soon as they ran a background check. It is hard to sell yourself as a healer when every background check brings up a red flag the size of Texas. The appeals process was brutal for him. My lawyer kept me updated. Apparently, Scott hired an expensive attorney who tried to argue the relationship hadn't started until after her therapeutic sessions ended. But we had timestamps, hotel logs, GPS data that showed overlap. The board didn't buy it for a second. Scott wanted nothing to do with her after it all fell apart. When his license was pulled and his name went on the public list, the first thing he did was cut ties fast. He blocked her number, ignored her messages. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he said, "She ruined my life. Getting involved with her was the biggest mistake I ever made." He said she was the one who pushed things too far. She tried to contact him, begged, cried, made it all about how much she was hurting, too. But he was done with her. She wasn't his new life. She was the reason he didn't have one anymore. And with nowhere else to turn, she showed up on her parents' doorstep with a suitcase and no plan. Well, there was a plan, actually, but here's the shocker. Her mother didn't take her in. Her parents, the same people who for years had enabled her, defended every mistake she made, painted her as the perfect golden child, had finally had enough. After seeing what she did to me, and especially to the kids, they were done. Her dad told me directly, "We didn't raise her to be like this." Her mom called me a few weeks after the divorce was finalized. She told me she was sorry, that they'd seen the signs but had hoped it was just a phase. When she showed up here asking to move back in, and we found out what really happened, we just couldn't enable it anymore. She was crushed. She burned every bridge all at once, and the kids didn't forgive her, either. At first, she tried to reach out to explain things, then to play the pity card, and finally to beg, but they wouldn't budge. My oldest daughter told her straight up, "You left us. You picked someone else. You don't get to come back now." My middle son was even harsher. "You lied to Dad. You lied to us. Why should we believe you now?" Words from a 12-year-old boy who used to idolize his mother. Our youngest son doesn't even mention her anymore. He draws family portraits with just the 3 of us, me and the 2 boys. That part hurts even me, but it's not my job to fix what she broke. It's been a couple of years now. The dust has settled. The house is quiet again. Not a tense quiet, but a real, peaceful quiet. I just keep things steady, cook, work, show up for the kids. No drama, just life. It is not always easy, but it's ours. Sometimes I think about how close I came to letting it all go, how easy it would have been to just take the loss, give her what she wanted, and let her run off to some fantasy life. But I didn't. I played it smart. I was patient. I hit where it hurt, and I never had to yell, throw things, or lose my cool. I just let the truth do the work. Now, whenever her name comes up in a group chat or someone mentions her in passing, it's always the same thing. Wow, she really blew it, didn't she? Yeah, and I don't even have to say a word. She did this to herself. Update. She's a footnote now. I never thought I'd be writing an update, but here we are. Life has a weird way of circling back when you least expect it. It's been a while since everything went down. The divorce, the board investigation, Scott losing his license, the custody, all of it. I had mostly put it behind me. I focused on the kids, my peace, keeping things quiet and stable. And then last week, I got a text from a name I hadn't seen in over a year, her sister. She and I never talked much during the whole mess. She mostly stayed out of it, but she always struck me as the only one in that family with a foot in reality. Her text just said, "Hey, I don't know if you've heard, but she was committed. They diagnosed her with alcoholic psychosis. She's in a facility. Now I figured you should know." I had to read it twice. My first reaction wasn't shock. It was more of that weird pause when a puzzle piece clicks into place and suddenly the whole picture makes sense. I didn't text back right away. I just stared at the message. Then I started thinking about all the things I'd written off over the years. The mood swings, the paranoia, the strange logic she'd use in fights. How she always thought everyone was against her, even when no one was thinking about her at all. Back then, I used to think it was just the alcohol. And yeah, a big part of it probably was. But now, looking at the timeline, the behavior, the collapse after Scott, getting disowned, the kids cutting her off, it all tracked. Her sister told me she'd been bouncing around since the divorce. She tried living with friends, then a roommate, then someone from her old recovery group, but nothing stuck. Apparently, she relapsed hard earlier this year. Really bad. Not just blackouts or slurring, but full-on hallucinations, delusions, walking around barefoot in the street at night, believing she was being followed. Someone called the police. They found her wandering near a strip mall in the rain, screaming about demons or something. At first, she didn't even recognize her own name. They took her in, put her on a psych hold. She's still there now. Inpatient, under evaluation, no idea for how long. Her diagnosis, alcoholic psychosis, wasn't something I knew a lot about. So I looked it up, and man, it's brutal. We're talking hallucinations, paranoia, memory loss, aggression, complete mental breakdowns. Sometimes it goes away with treatment, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it comes back worse. It all depends on the damage. And honestly, I didn't feel happy when I heard. I didn't feel sad, either. It just felt like confirmation, like hearing the end of a story you always knew deep down. The kids know. I didn't want to tell them right away, but her sister reached out to my oldest daughter directly, too. She's a teenager now, old enough to process it, and she sat down with me and asked if it was true. I told her what I knew. Plain, no frills. She didn't cry, just nodded and said, "Okay." The youngest still doesn't quite get it. He just knows mom isn't well and hasn't asked much more. I'm not pushing it. It's weird. I used to think the worst-case scenario was her running off with Scott to play house, while I was stuck here picking up the pieces. But now she's lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her fake new life, her parents, her kids, her health, even her mind. And none of that was because of what I did. I didn't hunt her down. I didn't destroy her. I just stopped covering for her and let her own life run on its own fuel. That is all it took. Part of me wonders if she ever sits there, wherever she is, and thinks about what she threw away. If she remembers what it was like to have a husband who bent over backwards to help her, kids who wanted her around, a family that defended her, a house full of people who cared, or if her mind is just too far gone for any of that to matter anymore. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. I'm still here, still working, still getting the kids to school, helping with homework, doing movie nights, folding laundry, being the steady one. Our world is quiet now, and honestly, I don't think any of us miss the noise. I didn't write this looking for sympathy. I'm not angry, I'm not gloating. I just figured if you've been following the story, this was a chapter worth sharing. She's gone, in more ways than one. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.